Hello everyone, welcome back. So this is lesson 5 in our Introduction to Genetics series, and any series on genetics would be incomplete if it didn't focus on how in the world these traits gets transmitted from parents to offspring. And so that brings us to this topic of meiosis. Now I'm going to break it apart into 2 different videos and maybe even do a third that kind of compares meiosis and mitosis, but for now we're going to lay the groundwork with gametes. And you may be asking yourself, what in the world is a gamete? I've never heard that word, but you likely have heard of chromosomes. And so we're going to dive right in and explain what gametes and chromosomes are so that we can get to the process of meiosis here in the next video. All right, so as you can see on your screen here, these are gametes. So you probably know what they are now just by looking at the picture. Yes, gametes are what you might call sex cells. In other words, they are reproductive cells. Now there is another term for this. They are sometimes known as germ cells. Personally, I just call them gametes in class. We always refer to them as gametes. So in humans, that we call them sperm and egg cells. All right, and as you'll notice, right, this sperm from the father is carrying half the DNA of the new child, and the mother is carrying the other half. So that makes sense. So gametes are what are transmitting information from parents to offspring. This is what is forming the new child. Now this new cell here, it is a fertilized egg, and it has a special name. It is known as a zygote. All right, and so often in class I'll say, oh, it's a little baby zygote, because each and every one of you watching this video right now, you were once a little baby zygote. You started off as one cell. Now the interesting thing about this cell is it is genetically unique. Through the process of sexual reproduction, it is genetically unique from both parents. It does not have the exact same DNA as its father or as its mother, and it is its own organism. It has its own DNA, it directs its own development, directs all of its own processes. And so it is unique from the mother. It's not part of the mother's body. It just needs the mother's body as a safe place. It needs her womb, her uterus to develop inside of, and it needs nutrients. It needs nutrition from her. And so, but it is its own organism. And so as people were studying, they found these things. They were looking at all sorts of things under a microscope, and they discovered these cells in semen and things. And they realized, oh, there's these cells here. So cells are what are forming new humans. And so they started wondering, where are these factors? Where are those factors that Mendel spoke of that determine traits? Where are they at in the cells? And as they continued to look at cells under the microscopes, they noticed that during certain periods of the cell cycle, that these structures would become visible under the microscope. Now, normally you can't see these dark purple structures that are shown here. This is an actual image of a slide on a microscope. And these structures normally are not visible. They only become visible during cell division, when cells are forming new cells. And so they eventually became known as chromosomes. Now you've probably heard the word chromosomes, and you probably know that chromosomes are made of DNA. We just take that for granted at this point. We know that through pop culture, through watching the Magic School Bus, through hearing all kinds of things. We learn about this at an early age. But back then they just didn't know. And so let's look a little bit specifically how chromosomes are structured. You have all probably seen in middle school science classes, and again, Magic School Bus, pop culture, all kinds of kids shows, DNA. And we're familiar with the idea of a DNA double helix. And that would be this down here in my crude kind of drawing here. This is the DNA double helix, right? And so it's made up of nucleotides. It's got bases in it. Each of these little colors is a base down here, and that's where your genetic code is found. And what happens is this double helix gets wrapped around these protein bundles called histones. And so these little bundles, and these bundles then coil and pack together and form this tightly knit kind of fiber, and that is known as chromatin. And that is the form that DNA is found in during most parts of the cell cycle. It only coils up and condenses into chromosomes during right before cell division. All right, so that is chromosomes. Chromosomes are made up of your DNA, but look how much DNA is actually there, and it gets coiled up so tightly, and it looks kind of random, but it's a very precise process that coils it up into all this. And there is so much DNA in just one cell in your body that if you could uncoil it and stretch it out into just the double helix, the DNA in one cell in your body would be about 2 meters long. And you have trillions of cells in your body, so you have trillions of meters of DNA inside of you. That's incredible. But let's move on and look a little bit more specifically at what an individual chromosome kind of looks like and is made up of. So here's again my drawing of a chromosome. It's all this tightly packed up chromatin forming this chromosome, but what you'll notice is you could actually divide this straight down the middle into two identical halves, and that is exactly what they are. They are identical halves of a chromosome, and they are identical in DNA. In fact, this, we'll pretend, this right side came later. This left side was copied to form this right side. So that was the process of DNA replication. That's what led to both of those two halves being there. And so they are joined together in the middle by this red structure here. That is called a centromere. Now, because they are identical, they get this really cool name here. This half is identical. Again, this extends all the way up. The left half is identical to the right half, and they are known as sister chromatids. Now again, they only replicate and form this kind of X-looking structure for the process of cell division. Now prior to that, you would just have this. This would be the chromosome. So during cell division, it's copied and it looks like an X. Now, how many chromosomes do you have in a typical body cell? Well, here's a picture of it. So a picture of a kind of a mapped out picture of the chromosomes in a cell is what is called a karyotype. So here we are looking at a male karyotype. I can tell because over here on the 23rd pair, it is an X and a Y. XY in humans is male, XX is female. So these chromosomes, so that's your 23rd pair, the sex chromosomes that determines your biological gender. And so, but if you look, you have 23 pairs of chromosomes here in a typical human cell. This is a typical body cell, also known as a somatic cell. So there are 23 pairs, so that means there are 46 chromosomes total in a human cell. All right, so I want to do some quick math though, thinking about that. If a typical body cell, a somatic cell, has 46 chromosomes, how many chromosomes would it be necessary for sperm and eggs to have in order to form a new offspring that still only had 46 chromosomes? Well, if the sperm had 46 and the egg had 46, you would end up with 92, and that's just no good. That won't work. There's no way for that to work. That would not result in a viable offspring. So what happens through the process of meiosis, which we'll detail in the next video, the number of chromosomes is cut in half to 23 in the sperm, and in the females it's cut in half to 23 in the eggs, so that you end up with a total of 46 in the resulting zygote, the new human. And so the next video is going to be all about that process. Well, let's talk. I need to give you a couple terms real quick and we'll wrap up this video. Here we have two karyotypes. The one on the left is from a somatic cell, a regular body cell. The one on the right is from a gamete or a sex cell. Now, what you'll notice is the one on the right has half the number of chromosomes. Well, there's terms for that. We have a term for each. The one on the left, the total full 2 sets of all the chromosomes is known as diploid, or 2N, meaning 2 sets. N denotes 1 set of the chromosomes. And over here on the right, we have half, or just 1 set of the chromosomes, 1 out of each pair, and that is known as haploid. That is a terrible D there. That is known as haploid, or 1N. Okay, and so gametes are haploid. They contain half the regular number. If you were to count all these up, this would be 23. Over here, diploid somatic cells, the full number would be 46. So I hope that this video has been helpful to you in kind of beginning to understand what gametes are. They're sex cells, germ cells. So in humans, that's sperm and egg. And what is inside of them, chromosomes, that actually contributes to your genetics, your genome, all the genes that make up your physical traits, your characteristics. And so as always, I want to encourage you to watch the other videos on my channel. Check out the other videos in this series. And as always, feel free to like, subscribe, comment. I'll get back to you. Thanks for watching.